100 Days of Code with here. My name is Shruti and we are in week 16 of 100 Days of Code. So with this week, we are going to talk about all the costs that are incurred during a journey. So you can talk about generally the driving costs, the cost of fuel, the toll cost, and some other ferry cost or whatever costs are that are incurred during a route from place A to B. So before we begin, if you have no idea what 100 Days of Code is, you can take a look at the description box. You'll find links to blog posts that tells you what 100 Days of Code is. You'll also find links to the older solution or the previous solutions to the 100 Days of Code. So let's get started with day 76. With day 76, what the task was to get the cost of the journey if a driver is paid 10 an hour and the vehicle cost is 0.5 per kilometer, and then specify the local currency. So which is the whole reason why I did not specify a unit there. So when I say specify the local currency, I'm assuming here we're going to talk about euros. And let's say the driver is paid 10 euros an hour, the vehicle cost is 0.5 kilometers or 0.5 euros per kilometer. So of course these are not real costs. I think the costs are definitely different, but this is just for our assumption or for the sake of ease that we have taken these. So let's get started with the developer portal and the documentation. Now, while I said we are going to take a look at cost, we are still going to take a look at a new API as well. So not only are we going to take a look at the routing API, but we're going to go a step ahead and take a look at the Fleet Telematics API. Now, the Fleet Telematics API, you can sort of call it like a superset of the routing API. So you have the normal routing as well and all the features that come with routing that we've been discussing. But on top of that, Fleet Telematics APIs are sort of customized for this fleet management, last mile delivery, supply chain management kind of applications. So the kind of APIs that they have are specific to managing a fleet of trucks, and the challenges that come along with it. So before we get deeper into fleet telematics, let's take a look at the RESTful documentation. And again, you can sort of take a look at what it is, how the Fleet Telematics API is built, and sort of read on what are the different applications. I like to jump to the API reference section because I'm going to directly start using this API. So first things first, when you sort of get onto a new API, first you need to know the endpoint. And of course, I'm going to come to what this API is going to do for us. But let's first get the URL for this API, so the domain for this API. And if you go to the sending a request, you'll see that you have the base API here. So it is fleet.ls.hereapi.com. And then we can take a look at the different endpoints as we need them. So what we want to do with this API is that we need to calculate a route, but then at the same time also sort of take a note of all the costs involved in this route. So we are going to keep this endpoint as well. So we're going to continue with calculate route.json because we want the response in the JSON format, and then the API key. Next, when you want a route, you need to sort of mention the starting point and the ending point. And here with the Fleet Telematics API, the sort of the way that the starting point and the ending point is mentioned is also very similar to what the routing version 7 is. So let's start with mode. And because we are in the Fleet Telematics section, I'm going to use truck routing and truck routing related parameters. So let's get that out of the way. Fastest, truck, and then enable traffic. So as you can see, it's the same as the routing version 7, and so far we are on the same track. Again, let's define our waypoints, and waypoint should be at the bottom right here. Let's do this. So again, it's the same way. Waypoint 0 is your starting point, and then you can add more waypoints as you go. The last one is considered as the final destination. So let's get some latitude and longitude in here. I'm going to use the one that I've selected for the previous one of the previous examples. And so you have waypoint 0, you have waypoint 1. Let's also add alternatives. Okay, let's first add alternatives. So if you see, I'm using the same call as I would normally do for a routing version 6. Get 3 alternatives. I'm not going to sort of define the leg attributes, route attributes. For now, I'm going to keep them as it is. And then let's go to the first few parameters that we see in the Fleet Telematics route, calculate route API. So the first one that we see is the driver cost. And like I said, this is the cost per hour in the target currency. So let's keep that 10 for now for ease of calculation for us. Then you have the vehicle cost. The vehicle cost could be per kilometer, again in the target currency. Now this is mostly the cost that the vehicle that you have to pay for renting the vehicle on sorts, or the depreciation cost of the vehicle, or even if you own the vehicle, there is a sort of a depreciation cost related to how many kilometers it is driven, right? So that could also be the cost involved here. And then you can also include vehicle cost on ferry. We are going to exclude that for now and then go directly to currency and mention the currency in the ISO symbol. So for euros, it is EUR. We don't need this. And now if you see the response, so we need to still log the response. So I'm going to do a console.log. Now if you see this, oh, we have the driver cost twice. So the second one should be vehicle cost. There we go. So we should have this response, and in that, if you go to the route, so we have 3 alternatives. We've got 2 routes. In the first route, if you go to the cost object, you'll see that currency is euro. That's right, that we set that to it. And if you sort of expand the details, you'll see that the driver cost, the total driver cost is 50 euros 78. Then you have the vehicle cost, which is 202 euros 18. And the total cost for this journey would be 252.97. So that was the total cost of the journey. We still are going to explore a few more components of this cost, but that was it for day 76. With day 77, we are going to take a look at a couple of more costs involved. So if you go down to the calculate route Fleet Telematics API documentation, you'll see a few more cost related applications or cost related parameters on this. So the one that I am interested in is that you have your vehicle cost, you have your driver cost, but depending on what kind of vehicle you have or how old it is when you bought it, or whatever the condition of the vehicle is. The consumption of fuel of this vehicle differs from every other vehicle that you have. And that is an added cost, definitely, because let's say I have a really new truck in a very good condition, that might give me more sort of kilometers per liter of fuel that I have in it. On the other hand, an old battered down vehicle may not do that. So those are the additional costs which you can sort of highlight in your route details. So let's add that. And the parameter that I'm talking about is called custom consumption details. So let's go down to that parameter. Also, you'll see that there's also, like the routing API, the Fleet Telematics API also has a lot of parameters. Again, don't be sort of discouraged. Don't be overwhelmed with this. It's just that you can take a look at parameters when you need them, or you can take a look at them one by one and then decide if you want them or not. So we have our custom consumption details. I'm going to add it here and then explain what that does. Now, as you can see, there's a bunch of explanation what the parameter is and what values to put in it. But to make things shorter, what it can do is, depending on the speed profile and the sort of consumption per unit of this vehicle, you can define the consumption of your truck or your vehicle at different speeds, at ascent and at descent, and at different sort of built up factors and such. So just take a look at this. And for example, this is a vehicle that at 70 kilometers per hour, it consumes $6.6 of fuel per 100 kilometers. And at a climb, it increases by 40%. And so you can just mention this profile. If you do not have these details, or you want to test out a simpler way of doing this, you can also use the custom profile based on the weight of the truck. So this is what our product team has sort of set the values in the back end. So when you say that your truck is a 40-ton truck or it's a 1.5-ton truck, the speed profile has been set by our product team in the back, and they've done this by sort of taking a look at different truck profiles. And of course, it may not exactly match your truck profile, but it's more or less related to that particular truck profile. So you can use this as well. So I'm going to use this to make things easier, but then when you have all these details, you can also enter them. So now you have the custom consumption details as 40 tons. And with this, I should get another cost added in my total costs for this route. So let's give it a couple of seconds. So what we have is, again, we have one route this time, and this is because I've mentioned it's a 40-ton truck, and so probably the other route had a restriction over the weight of trucks. So we have one route, and in the details now we have something extra, which is the energy cost parameter. And according to the energy cost for this particular route, the cost has gone up to 7,000. And so that was adding the energy cost into the route. That was it for day 77. With day 78, we are going to try to get a bit more detailed cost on this route. So if you go to the warning section of the previous call, you'll see that no value for cost per consumption unit specified, and this route is assuming, the engine is assuming it as 1. What it means is that the value for fuel, we've not written the value for fuel. And this is assuming that the value for fuel wherever you've filled up the tank is €1 per liter, because we've mentioned the currency as euro, and it is assuming that the cost is €1 per liter, which is definitely not the case. So let's add that information too. And now this information is, again, first we need to define the fuel type. So let's just look for fuel type. Let's add that fuel type. And if you see, the options are petrol, diesel, CNG, whichever you use in your trucks or cars. So I'm going to say it is diesel. And the next is, we talked about cost per consumption unit. So let's add that in. When in doubt, just do a search and you'll get the parameter, the attribute that you want. So you have the custom consumption details, you have cost per consumption unit. There you go. And again, the default is considered 1. Right now the rate here is, let's say, 1.225. And so you can basically put whatever rate is wherever you fill the tanker of the vehicle. So now when you save this, you should get something else in the cost object. So let's wait a couple of seconds to get the response. There you go. And again, in this route, you have cost details. And if you see, the energy cost has changed. And this is changed according to the 1.125 that we've mentioned as the fuel cost. So now the total cost of this route has gone up to €9,317. That's a really, really costly route. But that was it for day 78. With day 79, we are going to take a look at a very important cost, which is the toll costs that the vehicles have to go through when they are routing from point A to point B. And toll costs can be different depending on what country you're going from or you're traveling through. They can be different from state to state. When you're traveling within the EU, you can also come across changing currencies in the toll cost. So to take note of all of this within getting your toll cost, we are going to take a look at the Toll Cost API. Again, the Toll Cost API comes within the Fleet Telematics API, so you can also go to Fleet Telematics and just scroll down, but I'm going to specifically go through the Toll Costs API. Now, it's the same, if you'll see, it's the same URL. So it's a Fleet Telematics URL. It's just that the set of parameters you use are different. So now, what does the Toll Costs API give you? The Toll Costs API gives you total summary, cost per road link, cost per country, and cost per toll system. We're going to take a look at that a little later. What we're going to do right now is that to calculate toll cost optimized routes, we need to mention the driver cost, vehicle cost, and custom consumption fuel details that we have already mentioned. And on top of that, we can mention what kind of vehicle it is to get the toll costs for the route. So let's head to that. And again, whenever in doubt, just sort of search for the name that you want. I'm going to search for toll, and you'll sort of see that what are all the parameters dependent, or rather the other way around. Toll costs depend on what all parameters. So there's currency, there's toll, vehicle type. So let's mention that first, because we all know that toll costs are different for different vehicles. So that's the first thing we mention, our toll vehicle type. And of course, we've already mentioned the routing mode, but this is a little more specific, and you'll see how. So here the toll vehicle type will be truck. And when we talk about why can't it just take the parameter from the routing mode, right? But then even within let's say car, they have a few different variants. Even with the buses, they have a few different variants. With trucks, they have a few different variants. So this gives a more specific way to what kind of toll vehicle depending on the cost structure of the tolls. And then next is, once I've said it's a truck, does it have a trailer? So let's give it a trailer count. Let's say it has one trailer. Trailer count is 1. Then let's say it has what is the trailer type? So it does have a trailer, which is why we have a trailer count, and the trailer type is trailer. The trailer is number 2. What else can we add? Now once we have this, we can also specify vehicle, a number of axles, trailer axles, emission type, blah blah blah. What I'm going to go directly to is weight per axle. So this is also because the toll costs depend on that too. So if you just press this, you'll see what are the parameters that you can sort of mention. Otherwise, the routing engine assumes these things. So you can mention them or leave it to the normal profile that you've already sort of mentioned. So what I wanted is weight per axle, and I said it was a 40-ton truck. I'm assuming it has 4 axles, and I'm going to say that the weight per axle is 10 tons. Yeah, let the T be there. And after this, you need to have an important parameter which is called roll-ups. So we will discuss about this more a little in detail a little later. But for now, what we're going to do is we're going to add roll-ups. And this parameter sort of gives you the detailed toll cost depending on different systems and countries, and you can just read about this. But right now I'm going to say that I want total toll costs. And now if you save this and make this call, you should get the routing options or routing result. And within that, so see, you've got one route, you've got the cost object which has the same driver cost, energy cost. Then you have this added toll costs. If you wouldn't have added the roll-ups, you would have gotten this the toll cost in this cost object which we have right now, and that is still fine. But because we've added roll-ups and total, what we have here is a separate object called toll costs. And within that right now we have the amount, the total cost of the tolls, which is amount in the target currency, which is 29. But for now, that's it for day 79. For day 80, we are going to take a look at toll costs object and see what else it can give us. So again, just go back to the roll-ups, and we selected total in the roll-up section. What we want or what we have here is also toll costs per system, toll cost per country, summaries per toll system and country, and a few more, right? So for day 80, what we wanted was find out what the toll cost was per toll cost system. So again, for toll cost per system, we have the toll SYS parameter, or rather the value for the parameter. And let's leave the total in because we want total as well as per system. And so you can basically sort of add the other ones, and then you'll see that you'll get them in just more objects one below the other. So now if you check the routing response, you should get the route, the cost, but we're interested in the toll cost object, and within that you have the total cost which we had before, and then you have the costs by toll system. So now if you see this, you have this toll system and the cost for which was 20, and then the second one, the cost for which was 981. So that was it for day 80 as well as week 16 of 100 days of code. Now if you want to take a look at more cost options, you can see that within the warnings, the warnings tell you that you've not added this, you've not added that. So the sort of the toll cost can also vary, or the journey cost can also vary according to this. So you can take a look at all these parameters, see which ones are relevant to you, and sort of play around with the options within that and see what the journey cost is. Meanwhile, you can take a look at the previous 100 days of code solutions. The links are in the description. So just take a look at that, and also there is the link to the GitHub repository. So if you want to go ahead and sort of clone the repo and just play around with the code snippets that we already have, you can do that too. So take a look at that, and happy coding.